Good Shabbos, everybody, and a Freilich Chanukah. In Parshas Mikeitz, we have the incredible meteoric rise of Yosef going from a slave imprisoned in a dungeon with no hope of any light of freedom to becoming the viceroy second only to Pharaoh in the entire Egyptian empire. Yosef translates the dreams of Paro. Paro recognizes that he is instilled with a spirit of the divine and that he is a righteous man. No one can find such a person in all of Egypt or his entire empire. And Yosef will be appointed to oversee and be the executor in charge of all monetary exchanges in the land of Egypt as they secure the produce for the ensuing famine after 7 years of plenty. And it says that Yosef is taken, he is given the finest garments, he is given the ring of Pharaoh to wear. He is in a chariot which rides second only to the king, to the Pharaoh. And Yosef marries, and he has 2 sons. And it says that he names the eldest, Menashe. Why Menashe? Ki nashani elikim es kol hamoli v'es kol beis avi. Because God was nashani. What does nashani mean? Ordinarily, the word nashani means to forget. Indeed, many understand that Yosef is saying that now that I have achieved the great pinnacle of success, Yosef was perhaps the most revered human being on the face of the earth, certainly throughout Egypt. Yosef was recognized for his wisdom, his divine spirit, and certainly the position of power that he assumed. And Yosef is saying that God has enabled me to forget all the hardships and all that I had to endure in my father's house. I have forgotten this. It's behind me. And then he names his second son Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful and successful here in this land of affliction. Our sages are astounded. How can Yosef make such a statement? He names his first son Menashe because God has caused and enabled me to forget the hardships and all of my father's household. Yosef is exclaiming with great pride, I have forgotten my father's household, I've forgotten my brothers, I have a new life, a new beginning. Now all that has taken place, my suffering is in the past. Yosef has forgotten his father, his household, his brothers. Yes, he had to suffer greatly. But this is something that he's just complete. Is he heartless? Is he a person who's able to say, it's over, it's gone? Who can do that? Even if we are forgiving, we certainly remember the pain that we had to endure. The Malbim says that Yosef, what he is doing by naming his son Menashe, is similar to what every Jew does at the Pesach Seder. Here we are at the Pesach Seder celebrating our spiritual freedom and also our physical liberation from Egypt and suffering and bondage and servitude. And we are reclining and drinking wines like free men and kings and royalty. And yet we are eating the maror. And we eat dipped in salt water, reminding us of the tears. We also are being reminded of the bitterness. One is reminded, one doesn't forget their past. On the contrary, we remember the abject poverty. We remember the struggle. We remember what we had to endure in the journey so that this way we can give even greater praise unto God who delivers us from all of that great difficulty. And this, the Malbim says, is what Yosef was doing by naming his son Menashe. It seems to be inconsistent. Menashe means to forget, based on the way everyone translates Forgetting is the opposite of remembering. We're not remembering the suffering, we're forgetting the suffering. How is this in any way connected to what we do by eating the maror at the Pesach Seder? Rabbi Shamshim Hirsch discusses this, and he says that the word nashani has a root of the word nosha. Nosha can mean to forget. It also refers to one who is in debt and has a creditor to whom he owes. If we lend someone money, don't be as a demanding creditor coming and pressing that to receive payment for the debt. Do it respectfully and appropriately. The word nasha can mean one who's in debt to a creditor. And indeed, this Rabbi Hirsch explains is the meaning of the name Menashe. What Yosef was saying is not that I am forgetting my past, but on the contrary, I am in debt to my past. My past, my suffering, all that I had to endure, my struggle, my humiliations, that's my creditor. I owe my success to that. Adversarial existence is not just something which might enable us to grow in character and strengthen ourselves and gird our loins and learn how to deal with difficulty and overcome it. But Yosef was saying something far greater, that he recognized that there was a master plan from God. This he understood from the moment he had his dreams. This Yosef comprehended that it is impossible for his brothers who are so righteous and loving and kind and compassionate to do to him what they did, treat him like a piece of meat, a commodity, and sell him into servitude. And then even as a slave to be accused of a horrible crime and be sentenced to life imprisonment in a dungeon. Yosef knew that this was the hand of God and that everything that transpired was Hashem's means of enabling Yosef not just to deal with difficulty and adversity, but yet Yosef would learn from it. And Yosef would understand what it means to go hungry, what it means not to have a bed to sleep on, what it means not to be able to bathe and wash oneself with warm water, what it means not to be able to see sunlight. And then he also recognized that when Paro imprisoned the baker and the butler, and he was personally attending to them, and they shared with him the knowledge of the inner workings of Paro's castle and Paro's government. And he learned the methods of governing, and he learned the small details that are involved in dealing with the Pharaoh. And Yosef understood that quite the contrary. All of his struggles, all of his pain, all of his exhaustion, all of his fatigue wasn't just to make him stronger as a discipline, but on the contrary, that exactly was providing the knowledge, the character, the sensitivity that he should be able to sustain virtually all of the known world during an incredible famine that threatened to destroy mankind. Yosef never forgot the hunger he experienced. And on the contrary, what his brothers did, he realized they became the instruments and the tool of Hashem's hand, molding and fashioning Yosef to become this great tzaddik that he was able to achieve and attain. Yosef said, my suffering, all of my hardships, it is to you that I owe my existence. That what Hashem has planned for me, what Hashem created for me. And that's the meaning of the name Menashe. Not that I forgot, but on the contrary, I remember clearly it stands before me and I see the handwork of God. And to this I owe my existence. And what I am today is a result of everything that Hashem had planned for me. And the proof to this is in the name of his second child, Ephraim. Ephraim means Ki Hifrani Ha'elokim. God has caused me to be successful and fruitful. Where? Be'eretz Onyi. In this land, Egypt, of my affliction. This is your affliction? You are the most famous, respected individual. You're the man of the decade, the man of the century in Time magazine in Egypt. You are everything. Everyone, Yosef, 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 your name is all over. You're the most famous person. This is your land of affliction? Yes. Because to Yosef, he would rather endure the humiliation and the suffering at the hands of his brothers and his father's household than to have all the glory and fame and riches and power that's available to him in Egypt. Yosef never forgot, quite the contrary. He remembered every detail, he appreciated it, and felt in debt. This is what the Malbim means. We eat the maror, and we dip the food in the salt water at the Seder. Not just, oh, we remember the past, so we shouldn't become too arrogant with our success. But on the contrary, we are indebted to that maror. That maror is what made us and enabled us to become the remarkable, sensitive, compassionate, God-fearing people that we can become today. So many challenges have faced Klal Yisrael throughout the ages. So many incredible confrontations that continue to challenge us to this day. So many in politics speak of ill will towards Israel, and we know that means towards Jews and Judaism. So many people speak and they'll say all the right things that need to be said, but their actions speak louder than their words, and we see how they feel about Jews, Judaism, Israel. The Jewish people have dealt with adversity, confrontation, struggle, humiliation, hardship throughout our entire existence. But rather than throw up our hands and say, I want to forget this and put this in the past, quite the contrary. We must look at the maror on the Seder plate, and we must learn from Yosef how to survive in exile. And the most important thing is not just not to forget, but to recognize this adversity is what has made me into the person that I can be. It is enabling me to achieve the greatest heights in humanity and as a servant of my Creator. This is what Yosef has demonstrated for us. And this is what we can strive to achieve. And one other lesson from Yosef: better to be enduring hardship amongst our own than to be a great success amongst the nations of the world. We wish all of our friends and all of our neighbors and members of the nations of the world only love, peace, and happiness. But we belong at home. We belong in Israel. We need to be amongst Mishpacha, Klal Yisrael. And if right now we're in the diaspora, we should never forget that we should thank God for being fruitful and successful in the land of our affliction. May Hashem help us that we should not have to deal with the adversity and the hardships, but rather we should demonstrate our appreciation and love for each other and for all humanity, and do so in comfort, in peace, and success, and harmony with all. Stay safe, Stay healthy. Stay Jewish. Have a good Shabbos.